ahead of the quarterfinal, concerns about South Africa not being able to chase a total. They obviously sort of got that monkey off their back.
Yeah.
So if New Zealand do bat first, I mean, I'd say get old Guttel and McCullum out, and then it should be really in there. They should be in there with a shot.
Yeah, I wonder if sometimes too much hasn't been made of the fact that South Africa are supposedly sort of vulnerable, when they're chasing. I mean, let's not forget that I know it's a few years ago now, but South Africa are the sort of, we do have bragging rights from a certain game, the 438 special at the Wanderers, and that was batting second. I'm sure that's the kind of thing that will have been drummed into their heads psychologically. That let's not get too much of a sort of terror into our minds over the possibility of batting second. I suppose the one thing, if you were a bit cynical, you might say, well, yes, we won so powerfully batting second against Sri Lanka, but that wasn't even really a target. So you can almost not judge it because 133 all out. You really should get past that at a doddle, which is what they did. So you could say, well, okay, they weren't really tested, but let's take the positives from it. Let's most of South Africa's really blue chip batsmen didn't have to take to the crease even in that match, which I do suspect will have to happen on this occasion, because this one could be desperately close and tense. New Zealand will be buoyed by that knowledge of winning the last knockout match between them at the last World Cup in Dakar, a rather stormy game when South Africa lost by 49 runs and did appear to have one of their rather fatal sort of chokes, if you like. And I'm also still not sure about this whole thing of saying, we embrace the choker tag, we like the choker tag. That's all well and good. If we win this World Cup, then fantastic. We'll be able to say, these guys hit the nail on the head. They confronted the demon, sort of nose to nose, and kind of finally sort of pacified it. But that hasn't happened yet. There's still 2 games to go.
Yeah, I mean, Rob, do you think that there is still maybe that tendency to, the psychological, let's talk about the psychological side of this, because of the history that South Africa has, that bad memory with New Zealand. The team have been working with adventurer Mike Horn. There's been a lot of focus on just getting that monkey off the back. And I mean, I'd say getting through the quarterfinal was a huge step in that direction.
Yeah, it certainly was. And also, we've got increasingly fewer of the sort of players who've experienced that sort of choke phenomenon in the past. There are always people who don't have a great knowledge of cricket who've accused the current side of being chokers, which is an unfair label, because a lot of the players, who've been involved in those sort of scenarios before are now, sort of safely retired out of the picture. This is a new breed of guys. Hopefully going to exhibit a new sort of fearlessness, and I quite like the sort of the language that A.B. de Villiers has used. He's been incredibly bullish in a lot of his pre-match forecasts. He's said from the outset that he really believes that his side is the best in the world. Now, even some South Africans,
which is fine to say when you're winning.
Absolutely,
but should we lose? I mean, jokes on us.
Of course, that will the egg will sort of come back to hit a couple of faces. But look, if we get past at the very least this semi-final, that in itself is a cause for celebration, because we've never been in a World Cup final. That in itself will be virgin territory. So even if they were to lose the final, I think South Africa would come home with a lot more honour than has been the case on previous occasions. So there's that to consider. Hopefully that can almost be like a sort of a relaxant, if you like, for the side. Just knowing that they are now sort of in virgin territory and 2 steps from possible glory. So it could happen. I think let's just keep the belief.
And potentially meet Australia or India. Who do you think is going to go through from that semi-final?
Yeah, that's a desperately tight one too. I don't know where to put my money on that game, frankly. In the old, a few months ago, you would have said that.
What would be the dream scenario for you?
I almost think South Africa would almost like to beat Australia on their own paddock. Just imagine the sort of the comeback value, the absolute sort of settling of any kind of bogey factor if we were to knock over the main hosts of the World Cup in their own Melbourne backyard in a final. I think our guys will secretly be wanting that to be the final. Then again, they might also think, we've lost to India once. They're the sort of team we shouldn't lose to too often. We South Africa should feel we can back ourselves against India. The one thing about this Indian side is that their bowling seems to have suddenly come right to a big degree, and that's what sort of counts in their favour. I wonder if maybe Australia aren't going to actually give a little bit of a correction to the Indian bowling attack, and I'm leaning a little bit the Aussie way for that game. And then let's hope we get that Southern Hemisphere dream giant of a contest between Australia and South Africa at the MCG.